My guest today is, well, just an inimitable force of good. A dominant centre-back whose reading of the game really should entitle her to add every single match she plays to her Goodreads library. Joining us at the end of a quite incredible year for women's football, and to look back on all we've lived through and glimpse ahead to all that is to come as we approach the Olympics and even further growth of the women's game in 2024 and beyond. Number 4 on the field, but always number 1 in our hearts. The pride of St. Louis, human being who makes me feel like it's all going to be okay, even though it isn't. Welcome back to the People's Captain. It's Becky Sauerbrunn.
Raj, it really has been too long. Thank you for having me back.
You said that when I got on, you said it's been too long. And my instant response was to say, even if it's just been a day, it would be too long. I've got to tell you, I'm having a time at the moment, just seeing you, just hearing your voice. It's just moved me from a C+ to about a B-.
I'll take that. Let's see if we can reach A- by the end of this thing.
Bite your arm off for like B-ish, to be candid, but it is magical to be with you. First of all, I know for you, it's been a year filled with personal challenge. You lost your father earlier this year. You then followed that up on the field with a foot injury that was an agony for you, an agony for everyone that cares about the US teams yet to miss the World Cup. We saw you back in top form towards the end of the NWSL season. That final game of the last campaign with your Portland Thorns, tough 4 NWSL semi-final loss against Gotham. You put in a vintage, masterful performance. And as we prepare to end the year, how are you doing? How are you feeling as a footballer? And more importantly, as a human being, how are you doing, Becky?
I mean, I cannot wait for 2023 to leave. I am so ready to usher in 2024. I hope in every respect it treats, hopefully, me better and the world better in 2024. As a footballer, it was a rough year. It'll be great to have an off season where I can just kind of hopefully reset physically, psychologically, emotionally, so I can go into 2024 really feeling like myself and that I'm healthy on the field. I can do what I want to do. And as a person, definitely found out I'm a lot stronger than I thought I was.
Wow. God, that is a great jumping off point, because you just told me you had a terrible 2023. We've all had a terrible 2023. The world has had a terrible 2023. And here I am just being like, great, heard you. But now let's relive lots of it. Because what an arsehole I am. When I do this, I'm just like, really, am I really doing this? We're doing this. Because the last time we spoke, Becky, it was 3 o'clock in the morning for you on the West Coast. I think it was it was 6 a.m. For me, and we were watching the World Cup semi-final between England and Australia together with the magical Sam Lewis and the world's single greatest Coloradan Canadian Janine Becky on our Twitch. And for the record, 3 a.m. Becky Sauerbrunn, just as incredible as 3 p.m. Becky Sauerbrunn. 6 a.m. Rog, not the greatest, but I don't know how you do it. And we sit here 4 months on. The dust has settled a little on the summer, a summer of challenge for all who love the game in the United States. And I hate to say these words, but we've got to remind listeners, the US, that agonising loss on penalties in the round of 16 against Sweden, winning penalty from Lena Hurtig, the ball a fingernail at most over the line. At most, right? Yeah. I mean, we are 127 days on from that. Dust has settled-ish. I'm not sure the shock's gone away. What emotions do you feel today when you think back to that moment and the World Cup exit?
I'm still just really heartbroken for the team, and the fact that Sweden, that game, was by far our best team performance. We finally looked like ourselves. They seemed free on the field, and then to get to PKs and to lose that way. I just saw Alyssa like 4 or 5 days ago, and to this day she is convinced that she saved that PK.
Is that what she said when you sat down with the first? She goes, that ball didn't go in.
Oh, every time.
First thing, she didn't say hello, Becky. She didn't say how are you, Becky. She's just like, hey, that ball did not cross the line. Yeah.
Exactly. It's just, she's still convinced. I mean, I sent her, she asked me after the game to send her the image of VAR, and so I sent it to her, and like, you can, it's like I don't know. I think you saved it too, of course. But it's just really heartbreaking because obviously I was with that team through all the preparation leading up into the World Cup. I knew what that team could do, and so it was tough to see that exit in that way.
By the way, I'm pretty convinced that they just used the same photo for VAR for whatever the situation is. They just pop the same one out.
Controversy.
Yep, I don't like to spread conspiracy theories, but I think I'm onto something. And we are now, as I said, 127 days on. We've had some time to digest. As you look back on the summer and what you saw from afar, and no doubt after debriefing with the players, the coach Vlatko Andonovski resigned 11 days after the tournament. How do you understand what went so badly wrong with this? What was the worst American campaign of all time?
I think for me, the world knows when we're the most dangerous. In transition, we are world class. You look at our attacking players, they've got such great feet. You give them a little bit of space, they can turn you, they can drive at 1v1, they are spectacular. So for us, the next step is what do we do when teams know that about us and defensively set up in a way that neutralizes all of our most potent attack? And I think for us, we've known this for a while and we still have difficulty getting into the final third and then creating quality chances in the box, whether it's from crosses, if it's cutbacks, if it's combination play. There's all these different things that you can do to help break down a low block. And for us, it's like we're almost there. And if we're on that game, you see it, we're getting a lot of chances. But if we're off, it's really hard for us to create chances. And I think you saw that in the first three games. And then we found it in the Sweden game. And unfortunately, it was just a little bit too late.
You know, a lot of me agrees with what you just said, because I spent a lot of time since the tournament thinking back to something Lindsay Horan said to me. She came on our show, I think in the first week of the World Cup, and she actually warned us in the interview. She plays in Lyon, she plays in Europe, one of the few US players who are, tactically experiencing a different footballing culture. She came on and she said she believes that the United States style of football bred here, one based on athleticism and speed, has been outrun by what she's glimpsed, the European technical, the ball possession, hungry tactical style. Lindsay talked about how the Spanish, the English, the French have trained themselves to manipulate their opponents in possession, out of position. And if she's right, and I do think there's a lot in what Lindsay had to say, and speaking to many of the US players who've come back since, they talked about how Vlatko's style was pretty much just kick the ball to Sophia Smith and let her make stuff happen at high speed. So I guess that your analysis, Lindsay's warning. Was this round of 16 exit a blip, or is there something more fundamental that needs fixing?
I will always say that soccer is constantly changing, and the players and the teams that can adapt to that change and learn and add those new tools to their toolbox are the ones that are going to keep thriving and maintaining that excellence. And so if the game is changing towards that more European model that you're talking about, we need to adapt and we need to learn from our mistakes, from the World Cup, and then start adding these things into our game. And I think from what I've talked with Emma and I've heard her say to the team, I think this is definitely in the cards for the future, that we're going to learn a more European style way, but still staying very true to the identity of the U.S. team and the things that make us us.
That was a tantalizing teaser. You say Emma Hayes, the US women's national team manager in waiting, and we will talk more about the, God willing, transformational appointment, incredible appointment, to be honest, in one moment. But first, let's just complete the arc of the World Cup experience, which we have to admit charged on quite rapturously, even without the United States in it. It was a magical World Cup on so many levels: record attendance, record viewership around the world, transcendent goals, tournament that saw a number of historically smaller teams, Jamaica led by the The defiant prowess of Manchester City striker Bunny Shaw. Colombia, powered by the magic and wonder of the fearless poet warrior Linda Caicedo, made it to the latter stages. Perennial women's football powerhouses Germany, Canada, Brazil failed to even get out the group stages. So much to talk about in Europe and the rest of the world, about how they're catching up. But that conversation, how is that type of discussion perceived within the US group of players? Is it something you all welcome? Stringent competition, increasing footballing ideas that are making their way around the world. That's a great thing. Does it actually excite you? Or does it feel like an existential challenge?
Absolutely. And I've been saying this for years. Like, I've been wanting the world to catch up. And that means it's because there's investment in all these different teams. It means these players are getting more opportunities to play. So I am very excited about this. And I loved seeing the Colombias, the Jamaicas, the Nigerias do what they did, because it just goes to show also at the World Cup, like, magic can happen, drama can happen, but magic can happen. And to see these players make the most of that platform, like, it makes my heart sing. It really does.
As we now know, Spain were eventual worthy winners, lifting their first ever World Cup women's title, beating England 1-0, a goal in the 29th minute by the courageous Olga Carmona, who learned minutes after the game that her father had passed away. And Becky, we've talked a lot about how tenacious this Spanish squad was, given the chaos, the fight that they were enmeshed in, warring against their own federation, their shame of a manager, Jorge Vilda, whose coaching style and treatment of his players was one of the myriad of reasons why I think up to 12 Spanish national team players actually boycotted this World Cup. But the team won despite it all, won with a footballing ferocity, a technical prowess. It was honestly stunning. From a footballing perspective, because we'll talk about the darkness that ensued in one moment, but I don't want crappy men to overshadow the players' actual achievement. What did you see in their journey that inspired you in their victorious style?
So watching Spain, I kind of was comparing them to the last few friendlies, to the last World Cup that we played them in. And what's the difference? How are they just so much more in this World Cup? And I think what I saw is that they figured out how to be dangerous with their possession. Whereas before, I think they were fine just to have possession in kind of neutral areas. They figured out how to do that in the final third and how to create chances from that. And I think 2-3 years ago, them shooting a shot from 20 yards out would be unheard of. They would never settle, in quotes, for that. And then you see in this World Cup, it's like, no, we're going to open the game up. We're going to shoot from distance. You're going to have to step out. Then that opens up combination play for us. And I just think they figured it out how to be dangerous with their possession, because we know that's been world class for many, many years. But I think they just finally unlocked that last little bit, and their danger and the quality chances that they created just made them unstoppable.
We have to acknowledge, though, what should have been a moment of joyous celebration, just a joyous statement by the Spanish women to themselves, to their nation, to the world, was overshadowed by a true unspooling. It was more than a moment of darkness. So honestly, it went on for weeks, starting with, or revealed with, shortly after the final whistle, Spanish FA President Luis Rubiales grabbed the face of star striker Jenny Hermoso and kissed her on the lips, assaulted her with the whole world watching. And in the weeks that followed, really a surreally heart-wrenching saga dimmed the spotlight of victory. Rubiales, initially defiant, at first refusing to apologise, refusing to resign, but then, after mounting pressure from seemingly every corner of the football world, eventually did resign. It took forever, 10th of September, 21 days after the incident in question. Shortly thereafter, was given a 3-year ban from any kind of football-related activity by FIFA, as well as a 3-year ban from the governing body that oversees the sport in Spain. Becky, you are someone, we have talked far too much about this crap, to be honest, in all of our conversations, but you have fought so many battles against terrible men and their enablers here in the United States. So watching this, how did you process it? How do these terrible men assume power without check or balance?
I wish I knew the answer to that question. And when that happened, watching and then hearing everything afterwards, it was just is this the moment where things are finally going to change? Like the world, there's a spotlight on this team. There's a spotlight on this incident. Something has to happen. And if it doesn't, it'll just show again that we are so far behind where we need to be. And it took a while, but luckily Ruby Alice is out. The coach Vilda is out. And those were the right moves. I think the punishments were light from assaulting one of the players at a medal ceremony. And I think what you saw with the sporting world and definitely women's soccer, the global game, just supporting Jenny and supporting the Spanish players and, our players associations reaching out, everyone banding together to make sure that Jenny and the Spanish players felt supported and that we could do what we needed to do to put pressure on FIFA and the Spanish Federation to make the right decisions.
I mean, that's what still has to happen. You still have to reach out. You still have to pressure FIFA and, in this case, the Spanish Federation to do the right thing.
Unfortunately, yes, you have to use whatever leverage you have, the public pressure, whatever you need to make sure that these people are making the right decisions and you're weeding out these bad actors. Or it's just going to it's a cycle of abuse. It's just going to keep happening and happening.
It's almost like a double narrative, a dual narrative. We watched Game Saw. I mean, the World Cup was at times truly transcendent when I look back on my own memories of that time. But at the same time, you also remember the ongoing fight for equal pay, equal treatment. So many teams still battling with their own federations over. Canada, our neighbours to the north, fighting with their federation over equal pay, equal treatment. England, World Cup finalists, going to battle with their federation over World Cup bonuses. A battle that was only resolved in September after 18 months of back and forth. Nigeria, still yet to receive payments and bonuses owed to them by their federation. Zambia, probably most horrifically of all, actually had to take the field at the tournament with a head coach, the already disgraced Bruce Mwape, who was under investigation by the Zambian Federation, and FIFA had been alerted to this over allegations of sexual misconduct. Spain, obviously, too. I mean, it goes on and on the list of teams who are currently fighting for what really should be a bare minimum for any professional athlete. Where are we in women's sport right now? Unprecedented crowds, sponsorship, broadcast rights, the opportunity. It feels like it's soaring. But it remains the best of times, the worst of times. How do you understand where we are with that duality?
Yeah, it's quite a duality, the dichotomy of it. In some aspects, like you said, soaring, but at the bare minimum, making sure that these players are safe in the environments, that they're being paid contractually. And it's really tough to see this happening. And if I have to find some sort of silver lining, it's that finally people are paying attention, because obviously this has been happening for a really, really long time. And I think because of the World Cup, and I think because we're getting a spotlight shown on the women's game, hopefully some of these issues, like I said before about applying public pressure, hopefully some of these things will be resolved. But at the bare minimum, we have to be protecting the players. And so as much as I love seeing record crowds and broadcast deals, like, these players need to be safe in these environments, at the, treated like professionals, treated like humans.
Amen. Oh, God. You know what? I think I spoke to you about this at the end of last year, too. I look forward to a year when we don't have to repeat this question, engage in this, because we get to, please God, in this case, stick to the football. And as we look ahead to 2024, the one quite remarkable, significant piece of news is that Emma Hayes, who to me is currently the best manager in women's football, is about to take over the US women's national team. It's like as if the US men's national team somehow went out and got Pep Guardiola. Currently the Chelsea manager just won just title after title. Most significantly, and she came on this show, and you can find the interview, it's up on our YouTube, transformed Chelsea from just a backwater as a program into really a state-of-the-art reality. And Becky, you told me that you and Emma actually crossed paths back in the days when you were at the Washington Freedom, the women's professional team based in DC in the pre-NWSL WPS days. Emma was, I think, an assistant coach there. Give us a sense of what she's like as a human being, as a manager. What can we expect from her based on your experience?
So she came in as an assistant and she was so delightfully blunt and honest. And it was very refreshing at the time, just being told, like, hey, you didn't play great. And just being like, you know what? I didn't play great. Like, thank you for just putting it out there. But she also was very supportive and like, you are a better player than what you're showing. And I believe that this is in you, and we're going to try to do everything in training to make sure that when it comes to game day, all these things are going to come out and you're going to shine. So I really appreciated that about her, that she was blunt and also supportive. And from what I have heard and seen through clips with her time at Chelsea is very similar. You know, if the team doesn't play well, she's going to let them know. But then she's also going to care enough about every single player to make sure that she's getting the best out of them and that they feel that support and that compassion.
Emma won't officially be taking on the United States role full-time until May. She'll remain at Chelsea, finish off the season there. Interim head coach Twyla Kilgore, very much still in charge of the day-to-day until then. But I know that Emma just paid a visit to training camp in Florida, has begun initial conversations with your teammates and with you. What's she told you that you can share with us?
I think a lot of it was, we know that this is an interesting situation, that she wouldn't be coming for several months. And so I think a lot of the conversations were based around figuring out the processes. So what is the communication? What's the order of communication? Who's layering in tactics? Like, who's in charge of that? Who's evaluating players? Who's creating the roster for game day? Like, all of these things, players had a lot of questions about. And a lot of these meetings were figuring out those processes and making sure that players felt more certain in a black and gray kind of situation. And so I really appreciated that about her. I think we've set those kind of feedback loops, communication loops, because to me, like, those are the things that in a situation like this could get muddled and make players feel uncertain and maybe not valued. So to have these tough conversations now and kind of set the precedent, I think was really good on her part.
Given that Emma will not start until May, how do you understand how that will impact the team's performance at next summer's Olympics, given the tight turnaround?
I mean, from the get, both Emma and Matt Crocker have said the Olympics is a priority. We are not seeing this as some sort of stepping stone to the next World Cup. Like, we want to win this. As players, we absolutely want to win it. And there are not many players in the current pool that have won a medal or a gold medal. And so they want that on their trophy case. And so I think the players are like, we need to do everything we can do now. Every camp matters. Every rep matters. And I think the staff is definitely on board with that. So I think it's going to be interesting for sure. Nobody's gone through this type of situation before. But I think the way that the players approach it and the way that the staff approaches it, I think is the attitude, the energy, the focus, I think is going to be the most important thing.
Can I get a prediction for US fans? What do you expect? What should we expect?
Like we talked about earlier, I think what Emma's done with Chelsea, from building that team back up, I mean, they were like relegated for a while, right? And she brought them up, won several trophies. I think she obviously is a coach that can recognize areas of improvement. And so I think for us, breaking down that low block, I think getting more dangerous, creating more dangerous chances, I think shoring up our defense. I think also putting in a plan A, but then also being prepared for plan B, C, D, everything. So I think just being prepared for what another team presents to us, and making sure that we on the field understand how to adapt and to change to better capitalize on what's being presented to us.
Let's move from the international game to the club reality, and the NWSL last month wrapped up a season filled with progress, record-breaking crowds on the field, massive game-changing rights deal that will come into effect next year off it. Ultimately, a season that really felt like a changing of the guard in so many ways. Megan Rapinoe, Ali Krieger, Julie Ertz, all bidding farewell to the game. They love that we've loved watching them. It's been honestly remarkable. Each of them idiosyncratic characters to spend time with them over the past couple of years, and you know each of them so bloody well. Does this feel for you guys internally like a real changing of the guard moment?
It really does. And I think of Krieger. We got our first caps together. Pino, I've known since I was 15. JJ, who came on the scene like a rocket in 2015. I won two World Cups with her. I really know these players, and especially with like Pino, like she was my person on any team that I was on. She was the one that like kept me sane and kept me going and kept me laughing. And so for me to be losing these players, definitely for me, it feels like, wow, I'm old and times are a-changing.
So what advice do you have in this moment for younger players behind you? How to step up, how to establish themselves as the real leaders of both the NWSL and the national team?
I would say for young leaders as well as old leaders, like you have to care. You have to care about your teammates' well-being. You have to care about the team's success. You have to be authentic. You also have to be able to read a room and read players and figure out what a player needs, what the room needs, what your coach needs. So it's really like you have to be an observer and definitely find your people because you can't do it alone. And so find the people that you can bounce ideas off of, that you can lean on when you need to, because going it alone is really, really tough.
Read a room like you can a low block and everything is possible. Talking about everything is possible, looking forward a tiny bit, news broke last week that the United States and Mexico have mounted a joint bid to host the next World Cup in 2027, the Women's World Cup, with the promise of a $3 billion revenue offering, really as the catnip. A stark contrast to it was an astonishing number, but nothing like $3 billion, the $570 million harvested from the Aussie-New Zealand 2023 experience. And Becky, we are living in incredible days in the United States. The Copa America coming here in 2024, FIFA Club World Cup coming here the following summer, 2025, the Men's World Cup, the Lesser World Cup coming here in 2026. Can you tell us as a player what the prospect of Women's World Cup football coming here in 2027 would do for the profile of the game we love in this nation?
Well, I can just think about what it did when I was 14 and I was watching the 1999 Women's World Cup here, and what that did for my generation and how motivating and inspiring, and how it basically kind of sparked a dream in so many of our hearts about wanting to play at a World Cup and wanting to play for our national teams. And so I think having another Women's World Cup here, I think it's the perfect time for it. I think to have that spark be started in a new generation of player, both men and women, I think is fantastic. And also I think all the things that come around a World Cup, when you look at the U.S. Soccer Foundation, you look at charities, you look at all the things that can make soccer more accessible to more people, I think World Cups can do that. And so that also would be wonderful.
That and the possible title for your Arsenal too. It may not get better than these days, Becky Sauerbrunn.
Here's hoping.
Here's hoping for women's football as a whole, because it's been an incredible couple of years of growth and investment in the women's game. So much more still needed. Please God, so much more still to come. Ways to come. Many challenges to be tackled and overcome. But also, as we discussed, there is still the darkness that still plagues teams and players in their battles with their federations. But looking ahead to the year ahead, an Olympic year ahead, Becky, what's the one single thing that gives you the most joy, the most optimism about the year ahead in the women's game?
Well, if I can narrow that down to more of just the U.S. team, we just had our end of the year players ball, and it was in Frisco after the team played China. And just being around these players who have really gone through it this year, whether it be because of the result of the World Cup or their own challenges that they've had in their private lives, and seeing these players come together, these friends, and celebrate one another and any successes that they had during the year, and just genuinely loving each other. It really, like after a hard year for me, just really like gave me a lot of hope about the future of this team, but also for 2024. So for me, it was definitely that, celebrating one another, each other, the things that we've accomplished the last few years, and yeah, just drinking and dancing.
Well, was there one moment in particular that, when you look back on it, that really stood out as just like, God, I needed that?
I think it was probably Midge and Lynn were singing
Midge
on.
Pearce and Lynn Williams.
Yes, we're singing Boys to Men on the mic at the gala. And I was like, yes, this is the moment where I'm like, the future is bright.
By the way, I'd be doing a disservice. I did not ask you because the world needs to know exactly what Rose Lavelle sang for karaoke this year.
Unfortunately, Rose Lavelle decided not to attend, but her mom and dad were there and they were going around, and I think they ordered maybe like 25 fireball shots for the players that were there. So we all took a really big fireball shot together.
Never change Lavelle family with you and that approach to life. Everything is possible. I said that was the last question. I lied because you and I both share a love of books. And as the year winds down to an end, I do want to know, what's the best thing you've read this year? What did it teach you about football, about life, about anything?
Well, I wish it was that type of a book, but I went for a fantasy for my favorite book. And it's because I needed an escape and I needed something that was atmospheric and broody and a little dark. And so the book that I chose for my favorite is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. And it just hit me at the right time. That's the type of book I needed. I wanted to get lost in a different world, and she provided that. So I was very grateful for that.
I thought you were going to tell me it was Emma Hayes' biography.
Ooh, yeah, no, that's on the to be read list. I haven't gotten around to that one yet.
The untold story of the accomplished football manager, her life and legacy and achievements. That may be a fake book that I've just found on Amazon, but I'm reading it. Becky Sauerbrunn, you are genuinely one of my favourite human beings in the world. It's been phenomenal with you to close out this year. I can't wait to be with you more and more and more in 2024. Godspeed to you, to your family, to your cats, to the mighty Zola over the holidays. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. Appreciate it.
Big love, courage.